Welcome everybody for coming to support our Kollel. Paysach over here is not only a place that's hosting the event, other they are the event. Zichron and his wife were working for a few months already on this event, day and night, and I wanted to thank them. Thank you very much for everything that you did. Tonight we are official naming the Kollel Zichron Aryeh al Shem Zachar's father, Baruch, Aryeh Baruch ben Mordechai, Dunov Zichron, and had a tremendous chashivas for Torah. As Zichron told me that he started program in Philly before any of us anything official. He started off. He's very involved in the chinuch of the children from the next generation, and yeshivas and schools. All that in order for the children to grow and become talmidei chachamim. And it's a schus and honor for us to name the Kollel after him. All the learning and the positive effect that the Kollel brings to the whole community. This is finishing the third year, Baruch Hashem, of our ninth Kollel, and we want to thank all our supporters from the community and from outside that helped us to reach this moment. With Hashem, we are soon planning to maybe put out a sefer, all the chidushim which are mischadish in the Medrash on Maseches Brachas that we're learning already for 3 years. So that's all in your schus. We are holding now in the days of Yemei Ben HaMetzarim. We mitzavel on Churban Beis HaMikdash. For us, it's very hard to relate to the avelus of the Beis HaMikdash. The reason for that is because we don't know what we're missing. Chazal tell us in different places that when we had the Beis HaMikdash, there was a shefa bracha in the whole world. The fruit were tasted different than what we have today. The bracha and the parnasa that people had, there was no chaylaim in Yerushalayim. The Gemara says the yoifi of Anshe Yerushalayim was tremendous. In the Midrash Eicha, we said Mesulayim bepaz hayu meganim esapaz b'yofiyah. It means that the gold compared to Anshe Yerushalayim was ugly. The beauty of Anshe Yerushalayim, all that because we had the Beis HaMikdash. Pinchas explains that the reason for that, all the shefa of the bracha that we had Beis HaMikdash is because the Shekhinah was with us. He says you could understand it with the mashal that you had two people that made a chasana. One person made a chasana, was nice. The other person that made a chasana, he was close to the king, so he invited the king to come. So the whole chasana, everything in the wedding was on a much higher level because the king is there. When we have the Shekhinah, when we have a Gush Baruch Hu together with us, Hashem always gives us everything. He gives us parnasa, He gives us bracha, health, He gives us everything. But when He's with us, when the Shekhinah is with us, so then the King is with us. So all the quality of everything that we get is on a much higher level. That's what we're missing, that since we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. But we have a way and a madrega of reaching this Havas Shekhinah into our homes, into our neighborhood, into our city. And that's the Mishnah in Avos, Paragim Mishnah Vav, Bichalach Yishpach Hanani Oimer Asar Sheyosh Mimoiskim V'Torah Shechina Shriya Beinayim Shenema Eloikim Nitzav Ba'adas Kel. That means when you have 10 people and more learning Torah, so the Shechina is there. When you have a Makom Torah in your neighborhood, Makom Torah in your city, the Shechina is there. When the Shechina is there, that gives bracha and quality and echus to everything that Hashem gives us. So it should be bracha for everyone that helps us, the Makom Torah to grow and grow, and everybody should get the Sheva bracha v'atzlacha. Today we have with us the Magid Uflo, we have the Paysach Krohn Shlita, and there's no reason to introduce them. Everyone knows them already. His powerful speeches, how everybody gets tremendous hana and chizuk from every speech that you hear, whether it's on the car or it's on the road, wherever you are, you could be listen to Paysach's speeches, and we wanted to hear from him. Stam Divrei Chizuk.
It is a very special schus for me to have been invited by the Dunov family to come to speak here tonight for the night Kollel and to give chizuk to all that are going to listen tonight. First of all, I would like to thank Mrs. Dunov for her wonderful hospitality. Many of you can't know this, but I have a niece who lives in Philadelphia, right next to the Dunovs, and many times when we were there, Shabbosim or for Simchas, my achsanya away from home was the Dunovs. I slept in the basement many times, and I appreciate always your friendship, always your availability, you and your wonderful husband. And I remember when he passed away, I know that I was one of the first people that were called. I spoke to you and to your son. So this is a personal simcha for me to be able to come to this home and to be able to participate in this great kollel that's now going to be named Zichron Aryeh. I want to thank Rabbi Eitan for speaking to me on the telephone and talking to me all about the kollel. And now I just had this supposed to meet the Mardasa, Rabbi Greenfield, and I hope that we'll all be able to be inspired together. One of the things that I do in my life and that I love doing, I wish we could all do it together, and that is to go to Europe. I just got back literally 2 nights ago from a trip to Poland, and many times people ask me, why do you go back to all these places, Poland and Lithuania and Morocco and Spain and all these places, Italy? And the answer is something that Rav Shach once said. Rav Shach once said that any Yid that's not connected to the past has no hope of being connected to the future. And when we go back to these places, I don't go to the concentration camps to tell people how many were killed and how they were killed and what gas was used. I have no interest in that whatsoever. But what I try to do in all the places, the Mokem Sakdoshim, is to speak about each of the Gedolim and to see how they lived. And in Poland, Yidden were there 700 years. You know what that means, 700 years? As a matter of fact, people said that why was it called Poland? Because Yidden said, Poi Lin, here we're going to rest until Mashiach comes. So when you're in a country 700 years, that's what you believe. I mean, we're not even in America 300 years, right? And we're convinced that, we're never going to leave here until Mashiach comes. Can you imagine what they thought after 700 years, and then within 5 years it was finished? So we go back because you go to the shul of the Ramah, and you go to the Rebbe Elimelech, and you can imagine, I get the chills even thinking about it, which I did last week, give a shir in the same shul, in the same base medrash, where Rabbi Shapiro gave a shir, and to go to the cave of the Sfas Emes, and the Chedushei Rim, and then of course besides the concentration camps. So I want to tell you something that just struck me so much, it always strikes me, and I always talk about it, and especially when I was preparing for tonight, I can't get over this. The Sfas Emes, who was the second one of the Ger Rebbes, we have plenty of chairs, come on guys, come in here, really. The Sfas Emes lived to be only 58 years old. And we go to his caver, and as I said, he's the second of the Ger Rebbes. And at his Levaya, 2 of his sons were speaking. And one son said to the other, well, at least our father had Arichas Yamin. So the other brother said, Arichas Yamin, that's longevity. He only lived to be 58. So the brother said, I didn't say that he had Arichas Shamin. I said that he had Arichas Yamin. No one, no Rav and no doctor, nobody could guarantee for us Arichas Shamin. But every single one of us can guarantee in our lives that we have Arichas Yamin. Nobody knows what tomorrow brings. Nobody knows who can live to be 70, 80, or 90. But every one of us can have Arichas Yamin. And that's what the Imrei Emes, the third Ger Rebbe, said about his father. His father had Arichas Yamin. Every day counted. I couldn't get over that Dr. Dunov lived to be 58. The exact same amount of years as the Sfas Emes. And Dr. Dunov had Arichas Yamin. And I'll tell you why I know that he had Arichas Yomim. Because first of all, not only was he a wonderful eye doctor, but he was involved in every good thing in Philadelphia. Now, of course, most of you can't know this, but not only was he involved in the shul and the mikvah, there's a wonderful school there. It's called the Parlor Academy. Many of my nephews and great-nephews and great-nieces went to that school, and he was involved in the Vada Chinuch of the Parlor Academy. Not only with that, he was very close to a very big Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Aaron Felder, who I had the schus to meet many times. He was a very close Talmud of Rav Moshe. And Rabbi Aaron Felder ran the Vada Kashrus in Philadelphia, and Dr. Dunoff was involved together with his Rebbetzin in the Vada Kashrus. So he had Arichas Yomim. Every day counted, because anything that had to be done for Yiddishkeit in Philadelphia, in that section of Philadelphia, Dr. and Mrs. Dunoff, they were involved. So just like the Sfas Emes was able to say, or the children were able to say that he had Arichas Yomim, you could also say about Dr. Dunoff that he had Arichas Yomim, and that's why it's such a covet that the Kollel is being named after him. But I want to tell you something very interesting. In the last number of years, I had the schus to get to know a certain woman who the whole world knew about her, but many people just saw her when she gave speeches, but they didn't get to know her personally, and that was Rebbetzin Youngreis. Now, she was a very dynamic speaker. She was a very passionate person. She never went through the Gehenna of the camps, and she was very close to her father and her grandfather. And one of the people she was very close to was her husband. They had a very, very good marriage. And he died many, many years before she did. And she once told me that after he died, she was so broken that she couldn't even open his svarim, because he used to write notes in his svarim, and he had a very distinct handwriting. So when she saw his handwriting, it like brought him back alive. She couldn't even look at it. It was so painful to her. And the same thing with his notebooks, where he wrote many chidushim. Until one night, his daughter found an index card in one of the svarim. She called her mother and she said, "Ma, I'd like you to read this." And the Rebbetzin told me that when she read that card, she felt as if Rav Meshulam Youngreis, her husband, had left that card, that one day she should be able to see that card and she'll be able to go on with life. And I want to read to you what was on that card. One sentence. "A long life is not good enough, but a good life is long enough." Think about that. A long life is not good enough. Just because somebody lives to be 80, 90 years old, that's nothing. He didn't do anything for that. There's some people who smoke till 120, right? It's nothing. But a good life is long enough. And she said that when she read that, she felt it was as if her husband was talking to her to tell her, "Don't worry, I had a good life. I accomplished a lot. We did a lot of good things together. And that's why you don't have to worry. And you can be proud." And that's the same thing I say to Mrs. Dunoff. It's true that your husband lived only 58 years old, but he had a Arichas Yomim. And he had a good life. And a good life is long enough. A long life is not good enough. And I'll tell you something that the Rebbetzin wrote. She wrote a book, and it's called Life is a Test. And in there she said, "The goodness cannot be measured by the length of our years, but how we live those years. The goodness is not about what we amass, but what we give. It's not about having more, but giving more. For in the end, our lives are judged not by the businesses and the houses and the portfolios we built, but by the lives we touched and made better." And Dr. Dunoff, together with his Rebbetzin Yaval L'Chaim, that's the type of life they lived, making life better for so many people. And that's why the most important thing that the Dunoffs could do, and have done, is to name a Kollel Zichron Aryeh. Why? Because there's nothing more important than a Kollel in a community. When there's a Kollel in the community, it elevates the entire community. There's learning going on, especially in a night Kollel. And people, even if they're not joining the Kollel yet, they know these are the highest caliber Yidden that exist. Somebody that takes their learning seriously, somebody that wants to grow, somebody that's going to bring Yontif to every neighborhood. When they come there, they're going to hear a shmuz before Rosh Hashanah, a shmuz before Tisha B'Av, a shmuz before Paysach, and that's the greatest thing that you could do for a community, is to build a kollel, not only in Chestnut, but that it should be for all around. And to have a name associated with a kollel that elevates everybody. The davening is different in a kollel than it is any place else. We all know that. And Tisha B'Av is different. The Drei Wochen are different. Yom Kippur is different. And when you name it Zichron Aryeh, what a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you something interesting. Many of you know that I'm a male. And one of the things that I was fortunate to do, Baruch Hashem, a million times over, is that Art Scroll allowed me to write the book that they wanted to have written on Bris Milah. I wrote it for Art Scroll. And one of the sections that I wrote about was names. That's my favorite section of the book. I always talk about names. And it's interesting, when I was writing the thing about names, I saw in Mefarshim, and the Medrash says, that Adam, the Eibishter said to Adam, I want you to name every animal, and that's their name, according to what you name the animal. Like in English, a giraffe is a giraffe, but it could have been a zebra, it could have been a monkey. But in Lashon Kodesh, that's why it's called Lashon Kodesh, because every animal, every name defines it. Now, you know why an Aryeh is called an Aryeh? It's interesting, because it has the Lashon Yud Hey in it, which is Hashem's name. And just like the Aryeh is the king of the world, the leader of the world, the Aryeh is the king of the jungle, the lion. The Aryeh is the lion, the king of the jungle, the leader of all the animals. And that's why somebody who's named Aryeh is a leader. Aryeh is somebody that people follow. Imagine you have a kollel Zichron Aryeh after a person who lived his life being an Aryeh, being a lion. Not a lion in a negative way, but lion as a leader, somebody that people could look up to and to follow. And when you have a kollel Zichron Aryeh, you know that you have the Shem Hashem and in the name. And this is a leader for the community. And not only that, you'll see within 10 years, it's not going to be just a kollel. And Chestnut, Rabbi Greenfield was saying, I asked him how many shuls there are here. Are you the only shul? He said, what do you mean? You have a community with one shul, it doesn't happen. Other shuls grow, and there's going to be other kollel. And they're all going to follow what Zichron Aryeh is all about. And that's why all of you can be so proud. So, I want to tell you, really, one of the greatest pshatim. I asked Rav Eitan, and he told me there's going to be some Talmidei Chachamim here. So, not everybody, he said, but there'll be plenty. But, no, he didn't say that. But I just want to tell you, he told me that you guys are learning brachas, Ketzah Mevorchim, and so I want to share with you some thoughts about brachas. But there's a Gemara in Ketzah Mevorchim that I once heard an Adam Gadol give up shot. It is so brilliant, and I hope I'll be able to explain it, because there's a great, great lesson in this Gemara. And this Gadol teached the Gemara totally the opposite of the way everybody teaches it. Well, we're going to see a great lesson in here. And the Gemara says like this. The Gemara is in Brachas, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, and it says like this. There's a stira, there's a contradiction. The Pasuk says, Lashem ha'aretz amloya. Everything belongs to Hashem. Hashem ha'aretz amloya. And then the Pasuk says, Hashemayim shemayim Lashem. Only the heaven belongs to Hashem. Ha'aretz no sound of Nei Adam. But the Aretz belongs to us. So the Gemara says, it's a stira. What is it? Lashem ha'aretz amloya, that the earth belongs to Hashem, or is it Ha'aretz no sound of Nei Adam? So the Gemara says, like Kasha, kan koydem bracha, kan acha bracha. So the simple way that everybody learns it is before the bracha, it belongs to Hashem. After the bracha, it belongs to you. But this Adam Gadol teaches just the opposite. Listen to what he said. The Gemara doesn't say which is which. It just says kan koydem bracha, kan acha bracha. Doesn't say which is which. So he said like this, fabulous. Before the bracha, it's an earthly apple. Doesn't mean anything. It's a simple apple. After the bracha, then it belongs to Hashem. Why? Because you sanctified that apple. You elevated that apple. That's the pshat. Kan koydem bracha, kan acha bracha. Before you ate, the hot dog on a bun, right? That was just a simple hot dog, right on a bun. You can get it any place. But once you make a bracha on it, then you elevated it. That's kan acha bracha, that you elevated it. So I remember just a few, like last week actually, when I was in by the Chayza of Lublin, by the cave of the Chayza of Lublin, I told everybody one of the first stories that I ever heard from Shalom Shadron. And it's such an important lesson. It's such a simple story, but it's gorgeous because it shows us what life is all about. Listen to this story. Rabbi Aaron Kalina was sitting Motzei Shabbos by a tish, and all the Chassidim were sitting around. There was a little boy, Yankel, was sitting in the back, just like my new friend, Rabbi Katz in the back, yeah, sitting in the back, okay? And all of a sudden, the Rebbe, they give the Rebbe an apple, and he makes a bracha, and he eats the apple, and everybody's saying, "Oh, what a bracha, what gavaldik." And this little kid, Yankel, was sitting in the back, he was thinking like, come on, like, you know, like, what's the big deal? You know, he eats an apple, he makes a bracha, I also eat an apple and make a bracha. Now the Rebbe was very perceptive, and he sees that the little boy was not so impressed. So he tells him, he tells him, bring up that kid, I want to talk to him. Everybody's surprised, he's going to talk to the Rebbe. What does he want to say to the Rebbe? So the Rebbe says to the little boy, Yankel, I want to ask you a question, just between me and you. What's the difference between me and you? I eat an apple and make a bracha, you eat an apple and make a bracha. The little boy says, Rebbe, I wasn't going to say anything, but I was thinking the same thing. What's the big deal? So the Rebbe says, let me show you what the difference is. He said, when I get up in the morning, I look outside, I see the beautiful sky, and if you live in Denver like Mr. Silva, you see the mountains, right, red rocks, you can see it on a clear day, right, we know, from Newton, okay, where my mother-in-law lived. So I see the gorgeous world that the Eibishter created. I want to make a bracha, but I can't make a bracha. So I have to wash negovasa, and then I daven, and then I take an apple, and then I make a bracha. So you also, when you get up in the morning, you're starving, you want to eat an apple right away. But you know, as Rav Shalom used to say, your mother will knock your teeth out if you eat an apple before you daven. So you also wash negovasa, and you also take an apple and make a bracha. So we both eat apples, and we both make brachas. Listen to the genius. Aaron Kalina said the difference between me and you is like this. I eat an apple, so I should be able to make a bracha. You make a bracha, so you should be able to eat the apple. And that's genius. Why did the Rebbe why did he eat the apple? Because he wanted to sanctify it. He wanted to elevate it. He wanted to say the bracha. I just went into the kitchen before to tell Mrs. Dunoff, the younger Mrs. Dunoff, I give a bracha that the house should always have kedusha. The house should always have parlor meetings and simchas. Why do you have a house here for? The only reason that Aryeh gives us houses is that we should be able to have guests. We should be able to have wonderful events here. It should be a conduit for kedusha. That's the reason why we have a house and a car and money. We all need money, we all need a house, we all need a car, we all need that stuff. But what's the ultimate purpose is to elevate it. To take the apple to make a bracha. That's what it said. That's kan koydem bracha, kan acha bracha. And a kollel, like Zichron Aryeh, that's learning about brachas, has to understand the hashkafa of brachas. It's not just that you take something and you make a bracha. You're sanctifying everything that you do every time you eat a piece of cake or you have a glass of water, whatever. Now it becomes holy. And if you're learning about brachas, that's how you have to look at it. It's a heilig kollel because you're learning about something that's so holy that you're elevating something, as I always called the story of Rabbi Aaron Kalina, apples and blessings. Because it's not just the apple, but it's the fact that it gives us that opportunity to elevate everything that we have in our lives. So, I'll tell you something also that I said over by the place of Lublin, and then we're going to make a Kabbalah tonight, Blineda. We're all trying to make a Kabbalah. Now, the Chayz of Lublin had a Talmud, and the Talmud once said a Gevald, I think it was called the Tveres Isomer, and he said like this. Also, again, B'derech Drush, but you know, I remember last year when I went to Ukraine, so I had to readjust my whole thinking. I always learned in Litvish yeshivas. Now all of a sudden I'm telling Torah from the Baal Shem Tov, from like Yisrael Badicheva, and you know the Chernobyl. You know, it's like a whole different type of Torah. But you know something? What I realized at the end of the highway, we're all the same. We're all getting to the same points. You know, sometimes you might get it through a pshat or through a derech drush or whatever. It's the Zelba Torah. It's the same concepts. It's just a way of getting there. And I think the same thing is over here. Watch this. You're learning brachas, right? So we learned this sugya, ein kiddush ela b'makom suda. Okay? So the simple meaning is that on Shabbos you make kiddush. You can't just make kiddush, you have to have a suda. Otherwise you're going to have to make kiddush the second time. So whether you have a kazayas, or whether you drink a revius of wine, and kiddush el mokum suda. But b'derech drush, listen how he teached. Mokum suda is your mouth. That's the place where you eat the suda. Ein kiddush. How does a person sanctify himself with his mouth? Ein kiddush el b'mokum suda. It's not a question only of what goes into your mouth, but what goes out of your mouth. Ein kiddush, you sanctify yourself the way a yid speaks. So b'shlema, you're in a kollel, or you're in a yeshiva environment, so the speaking is going to be on a certain level. But if you're out in the street, or you're out in the workplace, all of a sudden, your language, can be tested. We all know how people speak today. They're using all kinds of words, for no other reason, just to show that they're in with everybody else. But the point is, ein kiddush, that how do you become sanctified by makom suda? By your mouth. And not only that, there are many halachas, how a person should eat. You don't eat in the street. A kid is going to eat an ice cream in the street, but a grown person shouldn't be eating ice cream in the street. It's not nice. It's not bakovadik. A grown person, when he's in public, I don't know what he does privately, you don't drink out of a bottle. Many times I drink when I'm speaking. So it's always out of a bottle. And just the opposite. It's not out of a bottle. It's always out of a glass. One time I got in trouble. The first time that I filmed the Tisha B'Av video, I always have water, I'm drinking, the whole speech, it's 3/4 of an hour speech. The middle of the speech, Michael Rothschild, the head of Chavetz Chaim, says, "Stop, we got to do this whole thing over again." I said, "What did I say?" He said, "You said everything perfect, but you've been drinking for 20 minutes, and we're showing this to 50,000 people on Tisha B'Av." So, I don't drink all the time now, especially before Tisha B'Av, whatever. But the point is, ein kiddush el b'mokum suda. A person has to be careful. I remember something, sometimes you learn something with a parent. Girsa Diakasa, you never forget it. I think the name of the sefer was Kav Yeshua. I think that was the name of the sefer. I will never forget it. I'm telling you, I doubt that it was bar mitzvah when my father taught it to us about ein kiddush b'mokum suda, and he said that in this sefer it says you're not supposed to drink everything out of a glass in one gulp. It's not nice. A dignified person doesn't drink that way. You drink it in two gulps. So even if I'm starving and I'm so thirsty, whatever, I'll drink, most of it, stop. Oh, thank you very much. It's not Tisha B'Av, right? You're not going to show it?
It's not a bottle either.
It's not a bottle either. Thank you, good. So, but the point is, there's a derech eretz, ein kiddush el b'mokum suda. The person has to sanctify himself, not only the way he speaks, but that the way he eats. So I want to ask you a question that I'm sure nobody ever asked you before. And I want you to think about it for a second. And if you come up with a good answer, whether men or women, makes no difference, you'll be in my next speech. Think about this for a second. What is your favorite bracha to make? Do you ever think about that? What bracha is your favorite bracha to make? Now, I've asked this question to many, many audiences, and I can't get over some answers are so touching and so beautiful. A woman once said, "L'hadik Neshel Shabbos." Another woman once said, "Shosani Kirtzoynei." Another person said to me, "Oyev Ama Yisrael." I was in camp, I don't want to say which camp, last year. A big fat kid gets up and he says, "What do you mean it was Zionist?" I said, "I believe you." So for me, until I prepared this talk, when I started talking about your favorite bracha, to me my favorite bracha was Sukkot at night. If you have the schus to be with your family in Eretz Yisrael, to say Shechiyanu and Leisha Basukah. I can't get through those two brachas without crying. If I'm sitting the first night, and I'm telling you, anybody who's ever done it knows what I'm talking about, and if you haven't been there yet, the first night of Sukkot, you can't experience the elevation, what it means to be in Yerushalayim or HaKodesh, the first night of Sukkot with family, it's out of this world. Shechiyanu and Leisha Basukah is out of this world. Fabulous. But you know what I really believe the favorite bracha should be? And that's Hashiyatza. You know why? If you think about it, and I just want to read to you how Rav Schwab writes, and only Rav Schwab could write it this way. When we contemplate the miraculous workings of the various halulim, such as the trachea, which of course is the windpipe, and the esophagus, which is the food pipe, and the entire digestive system, the respiratory system, and the circulatory system, Chas v'shalom, suddenly there's an unexpected, in a kollel, where we're learning about brachas, We have to make a Kabbalah tonight about the Bracha of Ashiyotza. I want to tell you something about Ashiyotza that maybe you've never thought about. And maybe you took the Vilna Gaon to bring it to our attention. And if you take a look in the Tfilas, the Siddur HaGra, you know what he says about Ashiyotza? It's the only bracha that we mentioned Kisei HaKoved. Isn't that incredible? Golav Yodul Lefnei Kisei Kovedecha. That's the highest place of Kedusha in this world, right? The Kisei, we don't say it by Shofar, we don't say it by Matzah, we don't say it by Megillah. Ashiyotza, it's almost embarrassing that we're talking about this. Why does he say it? Do you know what he writes? And you take a look again in the Siddur HaGra, Shafilu Hamalachim HaGavoyim Oimdim Kamer Ravovis, and he writes like this, that to show us that Afilu, even in that place, from up there, Afilu Mishom, Hashem is Mashgiach al Dvorim Shvelim Ke'ela. That the Eibishter takes care on these mundane things. What I would say, from now on, from tonight, should be a schus for Dr. Aryeh Dunov. It should be a schus for the Kollel of Zichron Aryeh. A schus for the Kollel where they're learning Hilchos Brachas. From tonight on, we should make a simple Kabbalah. That when we say Ashiyotza, we're going to stand in one place. How long does it take? 9 seconds? And you'll see, you're going to become a different person. And you know something? When I said it over, so some man made a comment and a woman made a comment. A man made a comment that he put up a sign outside his bathroom. Ashiyotza is not Tfilas HaDerech. Think about that, right? Every time we say Ashiyotza, you're on the way to the car, you're texting, you're diapering the baby, you're getting dressed or whatever. Stop. And you know something? A lady told me something. She said, you know, you're right. I said, what do you mean? She said, don't we say, Yev Shalamoid L'fanecha? Lamoid means to stand in one place. I said, you know, for a woman, that's a great deal. It's not nice what I said, but still. But it's interesting, right? Yev Shalamoid L'fanecha. That's the Kabbalah we got to make tonight. If we're in a kollel that's learning about brachas, we have to improve our brachas. I'll tell you a story about brachas you won't believe. There was a lady who never had a husband. They were both in their early 40s. And he was very, very sick. They had 3 or 4 children. And he had to have a very serious operation. And the doctor said, I cannot agree to do this operation. I'm afraid he could die on the table. So she said, what am I supposed to do? He says, you're going to have to go to a higher authority than me to decide whether we could do this operation. Now, of course, what he meant was that she should go to a bigger doctor and a bigger hospital. She heard the word higher authority, so she thinks who's the highest authority? Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, especially since her husband used to learn in Tfilas Yerushalayim 20 years earlier. So she decides she's going to call Rabbi Moshe and she's going to go ask him. 2 days later, the doctor calls her and he says to her, he says, did you get the higher authority? She said, I'm going tomorrow. Oh, which doctor are you going to go see? She said, well, it's not a doctor, it's a rabbi. He said, I don't believe it. You're going to a rabbi and a rabbi is going to rule whether I should do this surgery? She said, you said the highest authority. He's the highest authority. He said, do you mind? I got to see this. Do you mind if I come with you? I can't believe that any rabbi is going to rule whether a doctor should make a surgical procedure. She says, come. So the next day she goes with the doctor and her father. And they come to Rav Moshe. And they come to FDR Drive in the Lower East Side. And Rav Moshe is very much machabed the doctor. And he asks him all the questions about the surgery. And then afterwards, as they're talking, he says to the lady, he says, you told me that your husband learned in Tfilas Yerushalayim. I'm trying to picture, I can't remember. By any chance, do you have a picture of what your husband looked like when he learned in the yeshiva? Now, he happened to get married when he was in his early 20s. She said, yeah, Rosh Yeshiva, I happen to have a picture. And she takes out a picture from her purse when they were chassan and kala. And Rav Moshe takes a look at the picture and he recognizes the kid. Now, the guy's 40, but he recognizes that 20-year-old and he starts crying. Because now he realizes, oh my goodness, this is the kid I knew. And he's so sick. And when the doctor saw that Rav Moshe was crying, he turns to the lady and he says, now I understand why he could make such a decision. Any rabbi that could cry about a student that he had 20 years ago, God's going to give him the right decision. And you know what he said? Something that we have to be makabel tonight. He said, let him make, they should do the surgery. But he has to make a Kabbalah, this fellow. From now on, he's going to say brachas out loud. Why? Because every time you say a bracha out loud, somebody could say Amen. Amen. Listen, Rav Moshe is not a Chassidish Rebbe. Amen, he said, is Gematria 91, Aleph Mem Nun, and the word Malach is equal 91. And when you say Amen, or you cause somebody else to say Amen, a Malach is created, and that's going to protect you. And so, we have to make another Kabbalah tonight. And the Heilig Kollel, what we're learning about brachas, it's not only Ashiyotza. We have to start saying brachas out loud and not be embarrassed. We all want our kids to say brachas out loud. We always ask them to say brachas out loud. What about us? When you say a bracha out loud, what's happening is you're causing a malach to be created. We want the Eibishter to protect Chestnut. We want the Eibishter to protect Lakewood. How are you going to get the malachim? How do you get that? By saying Amen out loud, by saying a bracha out loud. So tonight, in this Kollel, L'zechen Nishmas Rav Aryeh, we have to make these two Kabbalahs from now on. In Blinender, we'll try to stand in one place for those 9 seconds that it takes to say Ashiyotza. And from now on, we'll say brachas out loud. And there's even a whole inyan, even about saying a bracha out loud when nobody else is around, because then the malachim come to answer. It's a whole Rav Shmelka of Nikolsburg, Chassidish Pshat, in a pasuk. But those are the Kabbalahs. That's how you live what you're learning when you're learning Hilchos Brachas. But I want to tell you another thing. You know, we said before about having Arichas Yomim. So how do you have Arichas Yomim? Again, Arichas Shonim, that's a Hashem. There's nothing we can do about it, one way or the other. But Arichas Yomim, every one of us can control. And you know what it says in the Avos Chesed? 2 things I'm going to tell you. One of them is so frightening. In Avos Chesed, Perek Yud Beis. Perek Yud Beis, from the Chofetz Chaim, you can look it up. U'ma'oid. Tzorech le'zor, you have to be so careful. Shalai yechsalei midas ha'chesed afilu yom echad. Not one day from tonight on, if you can still do it. Do a favor for somebody else. I'm not talking a husband for a wife for a husband. That you got to do if you know what's good for you. But I'm talking about out of the house. Every day you've got to do a chesed, and every day you have to learn something. And he says, just like you have to have Yasitim LaTorah, you have to do a chesed. Now, I wouldn't say what I'm about to say to every crowd, but here in Lakewood we could say this, because we have to know how true this is. And this is in Avos Chesed. Take a look at it. Chelik Sheni Perek Daled. Kisha Osak B'Torah Bilvad. If somebody just sits and learns, but he doesn't do chesed the way he's supposed to, and I'm adding chas v'sholom, then a person's not going to get the chesed from Hashem. Therefore, if a person has an opportunity, or if a person has a tzorah chas v'sholom, now he writes chas v'sholom, none of us are perfect, right? And we all need Hashem's rachman, we all need Hashem's, how are we going to get it? You're not going to get it only through Torah. You're going to get it through Torah and Chesed. And that's what the Kollel has to push. Not only the learning, but make sure that everybody does for the community. And I kept asking Rabbi Tan numerous times, do the guys learn with the people in the community? There's so many people out there that are chalashing today to learn and to be inspired. And if you don't know with them the Ketzayis or the Pnei Yeshua, that's okay. Learn with them Chumash, learn with them Musar. The Kollel's got to be a central focus where everybody in the community, from and not from, and not yet from, or guys that are not so much into learning, they can come to the Kollel, they know they're going to hear something special. They're going to learn something. That's chesed, that's Torah's chesed. And we have to learn how to do favors to other people. I'll tell you a story now. I heard it just a few weeks ago. I just could not believe it. Many of you know the name Mike Tress. So Mike Tress was the head of the Agudas Yisrael for many, many years. It happened to be that he was my uncle. But I tell you the truth, I never heard the story that I'm about to tell you. And of course, he was a kid when I was a kid when he passed away. He passed away almost the same time my father did. So I was 21, so how much could I appreciate of everything that he did during the war? Certainly I wasn't around then. And to know what a great person does, you have to be older and more mature. So recently, it was his 51st yahrzeit. So his son, Tzvi, was down in Miami, and he was davening in shul, Chassidish shul, and a guy sees his talis bag, it says, Tress. So the Chassidish guy, the Satmar guy says to Tzvi Tress, he says, did you ever hear of Mike Tress? He said, what do you mean? That was my father. So the guy, Mama, stops, and Tzvi sees the guy's got tears in his eyes. He says, I want to tell you a story about your father. He says, many, many years ago, I came to Satmar. I was a Satmar Chassid. I got a job, and the first week I was let go because they found that I was a Shem Shabbos. He says, Satmar wasn't what it is today. They weren't so organized. And I needed a job. Nobody was able to get me a job. I was going crazy. I didn't have food in the house. So I came to Satmar. I asked people, what can I do? How am I going to get a job? So some people said, you know, the Aguda office is not far. Go down. There's a guy, Mike Tress, and he likes to help people. Go down, you'll speak to him. Maybe he can help you. So he says to Chief Tress, I'm a Satmar guy. I wasn't going to the Aguda. And I certainly wasn't going to a guy named Mike, and a guy who doesn't have a beard, right? Right? How do you like me telling over that story? Okay? Right? So he's not going to the Aguda, and he's not going to Mike, and he's not going to a guy, you know, without a beard. So for 2 weeks, he said to Tzvi, I starved, and I was going crazy. My wife, we had no food. After 2 weeks, I said, it's impossible, I gotta go. So he goes into the office, and Mike Tress extends his hand. He said, how can I help you? He said, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm desperate. I don't have a job. I don't have food on the table. He said, what do you do? He said, I'm a glazier. I work with glass. He said, I can't believe it. There's a glazier just a couple blocks away from here. I just happened to hear that he needs somebody to work for him. Here, let me give you a note. Give him this note from me. He knows me. And I'm telling you, he needs somebody. He'll give you a job. I went down to the place, and sure enough, the guy hired me on the spot. And I couldn't, that Friday night we had food on the table, couldn't believe it. And the next weeks, every week I got paid on Thursday, mamish on time. I felt like a human being again. I had a job, I had food. He said 2 months after I had the job, the boss calls me in. And he says, listen, I want you to go to Mike Tress and tell him he doesn't have to give me any more money. From now I'm gonna pay you direct because you're a good worker. You know what that means? That 2 months before Mike Tress, on the spot, he thought, this guy needs a job? I'll tell you, I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to write to this guy, just give him a job. I'll pay for it. No matter how long you keep him, I'll take care of it. That's chesed. That's somebody who's thinking about somebody else. That's Torah's chesed al Hashoina. It's unbelievable. I'll tell you another great story. What's a chesed? You could go crazy from this. There's a lady, Rita Slamless, she lives in Washington Heights. So she told me that recently there was an old man, 90-year-old fellow in Washington Heights who passed away. He and his wife never had any children. And he was the youngest of all his siblings, and they had already died. So she was sitting Shiva alone, this woman, this 90-year-old woman. So this Rita Slamwitz, who I know, her son is Eli Slamwitz, who lives here in Lakewood. He's the one who arranges all these tours. So, her grandson rather. And so what happens, so Rita tells me that she's sitting with this 90-year-old woman, you know, she knows her from the neighborhood. All of a sudden, a middle-aged couple from Borough Park walks in. And they start talking to the almana, they start asking her questions. And after a while, the almana says to this couple, did you know my husband? She said, no. She says, I hope you don't mind my asking. You didn't know my husband, I don't know you, and you don't know me. What are you doing here? You know what they said? You wouldn't believe it. They said, you know, we live in Borough Park. We get the Hamodia every week. The day we get Hamodia, we open it up to the Misaskim section. And if we see that somebody is sitting Shiva alone, we go to the Menachem alone. Could you imagine that? Mikam Yisrael. Where do people get these ideas of chesed? It's unbelievable. But that's what we're all about. I'll tell you one more story, or two more stories of chesed. It's unbelievable. But Peter was once on a plane. It was the last flight out of LaGuardia going to Cleveland. So he's about to get on the plane with his Rebbitzin, and he notices that there's a bocher from the yeshiva that's trying to get on the flight. He didn't have a reservation, and he was trying to get on standby. And then finally there was 2 seats left, and the kid got on. During the flight, in those days, they still served meals on board. So the stewardess brings this bocher a meal. And he said, Elcha bocher. He says, ma'am, it can't possibly be my meal. I didn't even have a reservation for this flight. I just got on standby. I'm sure it belongs to somebody else. She says, young man, you're right, it's the rabbi's, but the rabbi told us to give you his meal. He said, the rabbi said I should eat it. How could I take the rabbi's meal? He calls over to Rabbi Gifter, and And he says, Rosh Yeshiva, I appreciate it, but how can I possibly eat your meal? Rab Gifta, as only Rab Gifta could say. He says, Junger man, I want to teach you a lesson. He says, tonight I'm flying with my Rebbetzin. No matter how late we get to Cleveland, I'm going to get supper. But by the time you get to the dormitory, the kitchen will have been closed a long time. You're going to go without supper tonight. I just wanted to be sure you had supper. Could you go crazy? You could go crazy. What would you think the Rosh Yeshiva was thinking about? His share tomorrow? Or if he's going to meet the wealthy guy who's going to pay his debt? That's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking about that kid who's going to go without supper in the Beis Medrash. That's what Chesed is all about. That's what the Chofetz Chaim is talking about. It's not only Torah, it's Chesed. And that has to be the way the Kollel works here in Chestnut. Avodah Torah, but it has to be Torah's Chesed. Torah to Chesed with community. We have to reach out to all the surrounding areas. Chestnut becomes the center. You have a great Mordasa, a great Rosh HaKollel, great Balabatim. And that's how it's going to grow. And then you're going to spread it around to many, many different places. What a schus for Dr. Dunov to have such a kollel. So I want to tell you one more thing, which I think is so important. And then we'll end with a fabulous story. You know, my father, had a very interesting pshat. You know, we say, V'sein chalkeinu b'seiresecha, hopefully we'll have a Ma'ariv. After this, I will say what we say in all Shemras, V'sein chalkeinu b'seiresecha. What does that mean, that we should have a chelik in Torah? So I want to show you something that I think every one of us can do. You know, the pasuk says like this, right in the beginning of Tehillim, second pasuk, Ki im b'seiras Hashem cheftzai. You have to have desire in Hashem's Torah. And in His Torah, Yega Yom Avalayah. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? In His Torah. So the Gemara says, in the beginning, it's Torah Hashem, Kim Torah Hashem. But when you learn it, it becomes His Torah, your Torah. That's yours. So my father was shown touched something different, additional, and he said like this: every person has to have a desire in all of Torah. You have to want to know Tanakh, you have to know Halacha, you have to know Musar, you have to know everything. But every person has to have a chelik of Torah that's his. For my father was Bris Milah. He knew every sefer that was ever printed on Bris Milah. He knew all the Shalos and Chuvas. He had files. He was the biggest expert on Bris Milah in the world. Every one of us has to have a chelik. Think about this. Maybe tonight, before you go to sleep, think about it. What chelik of Torah would you like to make yours? How about Hilchos Mezuzah? One guy in the Kollel decides, you know something? I am going to become the biggest expert on Hilchos Mezuzah. If there's any shaila ever about Mezuzah, they can come to me. Not that you're going to know the whole Kollel Torah Kula, you're going to try to learn as much as you can. But that becomes your chelik. Somebody else could be Tzitzis, Hilchos Tzitzis, Hilchos Kriyas HaTorah, Hilchos Tefillah, Hilchos Shabbos, Hilchos Basar B'Chalav. Everybody can have a chelik of Torah. And then, I'm telling you, my father used to tell us an amazing thing. He said, if you ever see a sefer that somebody wrote on a certain miktzah and learning, buy it, because he made himself an expert on it. And he used to have so many svarim, either on brachas, or on shchita, or on basar b'chalav, or whatever. Make one chelik of Torah your baby. And then you'll have such a geschmack in learning. Because as you get older, sometimes it gets harder to learn everyday Bava Metzia and Bava Kama and Bava Basra. Because you've learned it many times. And whatever, but when you have that chelik of Torah, that's yours. You become the biggest expert. I can see now that Mr. Solo is going to be the biggest expert in Hilchos Tzitzis. In 2 years, you'll be able to ask him any kasha, any place. Hilchos Mezuzah, one of those you'll see, I'm telling you, I can see it on his face. You'll see. And all of a sudden, you become the biggest maven. That's your chelik and Torah. That's beautiful. And all of a sudden, and I'll tell you the truth, that I was only 21 when my father died, so I certainly couldn't write the Matzeva. Rav Shalom Shvadron wrote it for me, but this pasuk I put there. This pasuk I put right on top, because that's what he lived. So let's review everything that we said, and we'll end with a great story. Let's remember, if you ever go to Philadelphia and you need a good place to stay, come to the basement of Mr. Duro. It's very comfortable, I can tell you, from personal experience. But in all seriousness, let's remember that the Sfas Emes lived only 58. Dr. Dunov lived to be 58, but just like this Sfas Emes, he had Arichas Yamin, and that's really what counts. A long life is not good enough. A good life is long enough. And he was involved in the Varach Chinuch, the Varach Kashrus, the Shul, the Mikveh, everything. We have to learn from that holy person. What a schus to be able to name a kollel after him. Zichron Aryeh, and as we said, Aryeh represents, HaKadosh Baruch Hu represents leadership. Let's remember that Kan Koydim Bracha, Kan Acha Bracha. You know who said that? Pshat Rabbi Yoshe Ber. Somebody was at a shir and he told me, Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, he was the one who said this, Kan Koydim Bracha, Kan Acha Bracha. That, just how clever, that after the bracha, then the apple becomes a holy apple. And that's so interesting because that's the most literature shot that you could say. And then I told you the story, the most Hasidic shot you could say about Rabbi Aaron Kalina, right? The apples and the blessings, right? He eats the apples, so he should be able to make the bracha. That's the same Torah, right? They're coming from the Ukraine, they're coming from Lita, but it's the same Torah. To elevate, that's what a house is all about. That's what a car is all about. That's what a phone is all about. All these things, we need all these things. But you can elevate them in a beautiful way. Let's remember tonight, Bli Neder, let's make a Kabbalah by Yasha Yotza. I'm telling you, you'll become a different person. You'll appreciate every little part of your body. The colon, the spleen, the heart. I'm telling you, I know so many people lately, Nebuch. As you get older, you get to know people your age that are having different types of operations. People get older, and all of a sudden you begin to appreciate, different parts of the body. Let's not wait, chas v'shalom, until a person has to have an operation and say, oh my gosh, why didn't I appreciate all this time? So I'm not going to give you any gruesome details of other people that have had operations. But the point is, Ashiyatza is something, it's not really. Let's just stay in one place and make a Kabbalah that we're going to say it properly. Let's remember, Amen, to say a bracha out loud. Because Amen is Gematria 91 and a Malach is Gematria 91. And like this we protect ourselves and protect our families, protect our communities. Let's remember what the Chavetz Chaim tells us. Everyday chesed, everyday Torah. The beautiful story of how that couple went to visit somebody because they were sitting Shiva alone. The beautiful story how Mike Tress paid for that guy so he should be able to have a job. The beautiful story of our gift on the plane. And let's remember, Ki B'Seras Hashem Chetza Yu B'Seras Soy Yege Yem V'Loila. I want to tell you one more story. It's out of this world. A few months ago in Flatbush, there was a family that made a Suda Seido. Difficult story to tell. I just realized right now because there's a little girl in a coma now, a little gross girl. And today, Gradav, it's unbelievable. We went 50 women together to be mispal, not only for her but for somebody else. And then afterwards, I heard it. The grandfather or the father made a recording. And he said while they were davening there, she started moving her legs. It's like unbelievable. The doctor said that it could be that she'll come out of the coma. If she comes out of the coma, it's such a mess. But anything is possible with tefillah. But anyway, this family was making a Suda Seidah. And he invited all his family and his friends and everybody. And he said like this. He said, I have 3 friends. We all grew up together. And every year, Baruch Hashem, we're all married and we have children. We go down to Florida in Orlando during the winter break. And this past year, we were all down there together. And we get this big condominium that has a private pool and an arcade room. And one morning, the women decided to go shopping. So the men were home alone with the kids. So they decided they're going to take the boys in the backyard, they're going to go swimming. They finished swimming, the men went upstairs, some were learning, some were schmoozing. And the other kids, they were all downstairs playing with the arcades. All of a sudden, the 4-year-old, the guy who's telling the story, the father who made the Suda Seidah, my 4-year-old son realized that my 1.5-year-old boy is missing. And he sees that the door to the backyard is open, and he runs outside, and he sees the kid is facing flat in the pool. He's in the pool, face down. And he comes into the house, he's yelling and screaming. And just as he was yelling and screaming, one of the 4 of us, who happened to be the only one that's a solo member, he was coming down the stairs to check on his kids. And this kid is yelling, my baby brother's in the pool. The guy runs outside, jumps into the pool, takes out the kid, lays him out on the ground, does CPR, and literally saves his life. He brings him back to life. He said, I just want to thank Hashem that the Eibishter coordinated that the second that my son was running in, to say that his brother was in the pool. This Hatzalah guy was coming down the steps. He finishes speaking, and then this Hatzalah guy who saved this little boy, his wife gets up and says, now I want to speak. Everybody's looking at her like, what do you mean she's going to speak? Imagine Mrs. Dunoff said, now she wants to speak, right? So like, what's going on here? She says, I want to tell you part of the story that nobody knows. She says, this year, we weren't going to go down to Florida. We couldn't afford it because we had a difficult year in business. But that father, he found out about it. I don't know how he found out about it. And he called us up and he said, there's no such thing that you're not coming. We're all together. Every year we go together. We're all one big family. I'm paying for you, for your husband, and for your 4 kids. And that's why we came down. And he thought that he was doing us the biggest favor by paying for our vacation. Turned out he was doing himself the biggest favor because my husband, that Tzollah member, saved his son's life. And that's the final thing that I want to tell you. The Pasuk tells us, V'nosnu. Those of you who can picture the word, Vov, Nun, Tov, Nun, Vov, you can read it frontwards and backwards. It's called a palindrome. You know what the Balatrum says on that? Take a look at it tonight in Pashas Kisisa. He says, when you give to someone else, you're not losing. You can give up your money, your heart, your time. Just remember, you open up a kollel, you're giving to the community. You're not losing, you're going to get back. Whatever you give to the kollel, you're going to get back 10 times because the geschmack that you learn with is going to cause that kollel to other guys to learn that you're going to have even a more geschmack. And the time that you give to that balabas who really wouldn't be learning unless you learned with him, that's going to give you mitamid hayesim mekulam. And you know what's the greatest investment? I could cry when I think about it. Your kids. When your kids see that their tati goes out at night to learn, and he spends time with the kids, and maybe as the kids get older, you'll bring him into the kollel, and you'll chazer the Gemara with them, and you'll learn with them. It's the greatest investment in the world, learning with a child. Learn with your child so that by his bar mitzvah he'll make a siyum. Makes a siyum on a masechta, siyum on mishnais, whatever. Learn with him in the kollel. That's the greatest investment. That'll be the biggest hanah. That's what you'll get back. David should help that this fabulous kollel, Zichron Aryeh, named after a great person. It's a shame that most of you didn't know him. But you'll know him because you'll see how successful the kollel will be. That the kollel should go lamaila, and be a role model not only for Chestnut, but for the whole surrounding areas. And each of us will become people of Torah and Chesed. And be zeicher to see Mashiach. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for listening.